In a recent video on tips for climbing solo queue, Red Mercy brought up an interesting dichotomy that I hadn't really thought about in too much detail before, even though I've been playing League for over 2 years now. One of his tips was to choose between two schools of thought when it comes to solo queue. Either be a one-trick pony, meaning that you primarily play only one champion but play exceptionally well, or be a master/jack-of-all-trades, in that you have a large champion pool made up of maybe 2 or 3 champions for every lane. Now I'm obviously a one-trick pony, and have been for almost a year now. In Season 4 I got to Platinum playing almost exclusively Rise, and now I'm hoping to get to Diamond playing exclusively Singed in Season 5. Being a one-trick pony means that I excel at playing one champion, at the moment Singed, and the reason that is because I've sunk a huge amount of time into playing him and exploring all the little nuances of his playstyle and kit. Sure, I'm no inverted composer or drew droid by any means, but I think it's pretty safe to say that I know how to play this champion. The reason I'm making this little video is because I actually disagree with Red Mercy's opinion that being a jack-of-all-trades is preferable to being a one-trick pony. He did concede that being a one-trick pony obviously can work amazingly well. After all, there wouldn't be so many of them in high elo if that wasn't the case. But he believes that being a jack-of-all-trades is better, as you have a great deal of flex when it comes to champion select. What if your main is banned away? What if the enemy team directly counters your main champion? Well, no problem. You have several other champions to pick up that may fare better against your opponents. Nobody can doubt that in the competitive scene of League of Legends, being a jack-of-all-trades is not only better, but essential. Almost every pro player is a jack-of-all-trades, and those who aren't don't get very far because they're simply banned out. I mean, look at Bunny Fufu for instance. He's an absolutely phenomenal Thresh player, but he couldn't keep up in the LCS due to the fact that enemy teams would simply ban Thresh and force him onto a champion that he just wasn't as good on. Seeing as how in the pro scene being a jack-of-all-trades is better, you might be tempted to think that it's better in solo queue as well. In my opinion though, it's not, and let me tell you why I think that. As I said before, my first main champion was Rise. I remember playing several normal games with him in top lane, crushing in all of them, and then immediately taking it to ranked. I shot out of Silver 2 and into Gold lightning fast, and in another 2 months I was in Platinum. I did occasionally play a few games to support Leone here and there when I didn't get top, but I primarily played Rise. I chose him as a main because I discovered that I was good at him, that he was able to cater to my aggressive playstyle top lane and bully my opponents around, all while having a super strong late game. It probably took me about 10 or 15 ranked games before I settled on a solid build for Rise top, and probably another 20 more before I finally got all the little nuances of his complicated laning phase down. What to do against certain opponents, when to freeze, being happy when my tower gets taken, etc. It took a long time for me to actually learn the ins and outs of Rise and figure out a consistent method of winning lane. Remember, this is Rise we're talking about here, arguably the simplest champion in the game, and it still took me all that time to master him. I probably played around 80 or so games of Rise that season in both normals and ranked, and if I were to pick Rise in a game today, I'm pretty sure I could play him just as well as I did last season. So why am I telling you this then? Well, my point is that being a one-trick pony takes a lot of hard work, but in the game of inches that is League of Legends, or hell, any MOBA for that matter, those little nuances matter so much. One decision can be the difference between you stomping your enemy in top lane or making a retarded mistake and having them kill you and go on to snowball the game out of control. All those little nuances revolve around champions. All the experience I gained while playing Rise, how to play the lane, what to do against certain matchups, that all mostly went out the door when I started playing Singed. He's a completely different champion with arguably the most unique and trolly playstyle in the game. Even now I'm still learning what to do against certain matchups, as the footage you're watching right now shows. I've always had trouble against Nasus as Singed. I mean, sure, neither of you can kill each other unless one of you is retarded, but there's not much Singed can do to stop Nasus farming. As a proxy Singed player, this is even worse, but as the game started and I ran to my level 1 proxy, I was formulating a plan. I would farm the first few waves as normal, since Nasus will lose far too much health tanking minions at level 1, but then after that I'd recall and spend the rest of my time between his tier 1 and 2 towers, making sure to stay close to him so if he tried to freeze the lane before his tower, I could slap him back into line. This strategy would not have worked had it not been for a completely subconscious action I made without even thinking. Each time I backed, I bought 2 mana potions. The enemy jungler was not really going for me, so I could spend a lot of time between the towers but would run out of mana quickly clearing the wave. Those mana potions allowed me to keep my strategy up almost the entire laning phase, and it didn't occur to me until afterwards, watching the game back, how good of a decision it was to get those mana potions, and how they probably ended up winning us the game by ensuring Nasus didn't get what essentially was free farm. If I didn't have all this experience playing Singed, would I still have thought of that? I personally don't think I would have, or at least not as subconsciously as I did in that game. If I'd been a jack of all trades and played a lot of champions other than Singed, would I have ended up buying those mana potions that won me the lane? I like playing some Karthus for fun every now and again, and I'm pretty good with him. But then I watch Zingy, a famous Karthus player, playing him instead, and it's like he's playing an entirely different champion in what he builds and what he knows how to do in certain situations. My point is that being a one-trick pony is harder than being a jack of all trades. But in the end, if you sink the time and effort into not only learning how to play your champion and playing them a whole lot, but to look at how other people play them as well and adopt bits and pieces from their playstyle, you'll be a much better player than if you were playing a champion you didn't have as much experience on and didn't do as much research on. I'm perfectly happy to first pick Singed in rank because his counterpicks just don't scare me anymore. I know how to play against him and what to do, and more likely than not my opponent simply counterpicked me with a champion they didn't really know how to play, and I wrecked them because of that. Finding a champion you love and want to main takes a long time. It took me almost a year and a half before I started maining Rise, and almost 2 years before I started maining Singed. But in the end, once you find a champion that you love the playstyle of, do well on, and sink the time and effort into playing them and learning about them, you will win far more often than if you play a champion that you've only played for 10 games, even if those 10 games went incredibly well.